Hey there, dummy. Feel like you suck at this game no matter what you do? That no matter how much you think you contribute, you still end up with a short stick? Well, fear not, as I've got all the solutions to your problems right here in this handy dandy video. So buckle up and pay attention as I teach you.
Okay, enough of that terrible accent. Hey guys, in case the title didn't make it obvious enough, these are 6 tips that I've compiled to help your Survivor gameplay. Now, I won't be giving any tips on how to face any specific killers, but instead, I will be giving general advice that you can apply to just about every one of your matches. But I might make a video on how to face specific killers at a later date. Just so you know, none of these tips are in a specific order. They could honestly go anywhere on the list, except for the last one. I think the last tip that's going to be here is very important for you to learn. Alright, enough wasting your time, let's get straight in. To start off my list, we're going to discuss camera placement. Good camera placement is crucial to survival. If you can see more, you have more information. This may sound obvious, but it's more important than you may realize. Here's an example of bad camera placement. Meg is here doing this gen in the corner of the map. She's making great progress on it too. But she's not checking her entrances to the room, so she could easily get flanked. As you would guess, not too long later, Meg gets grabbed out the generator by a sneaky ghost face. This could have been avoided, however, if she used the third-person camera to its full extent. Now, here's an example of good camera placement. Meg checks both sides quite frequently, that way she's never caught off guard by anyone trying to sneak up on her, and it ends up paying off as she gets a good head start on the killer before he reaches her. My next tip involves creativity in the chase. There are several ways you can run a chase based on your options, and one of the biggest things to consider when running away from the killer is how to maximize pallet efficiency in order to get most out of your chases. Consider the tiles that you have around you and how you can chain multiple together to create an even bigger loop. Here's an example of Claudette running a jungle gym tile. While inherently she isn't doing anything wrong, she could be more efficient with her pallet usage, and instead of running to the pallet, she could move to the pallet gym right next to her to conserve the strong pallet for a later chase. Now, let's quickly observe a clip of me running a Bubba. Notice that I wait for him to end his chainsaw attack before I make my next move and run to another loop that's in a more favorable area. As I enter the pallet gym, I actually keep running instead of using the loop, as I see I have enough distance on to make it to the shack. This tactic is also commonly referred to as holding W, essentially meaning that instead of using a tile, you just keep running. Sometimes, in a match, you're gonna run into a situation where your team is getting in a rough spot, and you'll have to make decisions that will most benefit the situation for your team. Here in this clip, Pinna is camping David pretty hard, which creates an opportunity for choices. Thanks to Kindred, I was able to see that Lisa was in the area waiting for an opportunity to rescue David. I could also see that Dwight was working on a generator in the far corner. Using the limited information I had, I could deduct that if Pinhead intends on camping this hard, he's probably going to tunnel David regardless if we save him or not, especially if the perk Borrowed Time isn't in play. I decided that my best option would be to keep repairing my generator in order to make David's time on the hook still worth something. Later, I tried to get in a hook trade in order to take the pressure off my team for a moment, but since I was injured that whole time, there was no good gap to actually squeeze in to try to rescue David without us both being killed, so sadly, he did have to die. But thanks to our decision to not attempt to all save David at the same time, we were able to focus on generators and at least make sure that he did not go out in vain. And I got his box. My next tip is going to be understanding your maps and knowing how much they can vary each time you play them. As of making this video, there are currently 33 maps and 16 realms, with 8 of those realms having multiple maps attached to them. Along with this, every map has some form of random generation in them, with some more than others. Here's an example of Ironworks of Misery and how much it can change every time you play it. A lot of maps can change drastically depending on what generates, which means you need to learn the playing field and know where is and isn't safe. This will be useful for creating effective routes to run the killer in. Other maps don't change in layout that much. The most extreme example would be the RPD map, where the map pretty much always stays the exact same every time, except the placement of the pallets in the various rooms that are on screen now. My next tip is to be adaptive and learn your opponent. To play well against a killer, it's very important to observe patterns in their strategies and their chasing abilities. Everybody plays differently, so you can't play the exact same way every game due to the wide variety of killers, perks, and add-ons in the game that force you to shake up your playstyle. Take, for example, you'd run a nurse in a chase much differently than you'd run a wraith. The nurse being able to blink through walls in order to cut the survivor off from their destination. And the wraith is usually forced to run loops in a more traditional way, but sometimes is able to pull sneaky tricks with his uncloaking dash. But killer powers aren't the only thing to think about. You also have to pay attention to how the killer chases in general. Pay attention to how much they respect pallets, vault windows, moonwalk, etc. All these factors and others are important to keep an eye on so you can predict the killer's next move. And now the moment you've all been waiting for. My final and most important piece of advice I can give to anybody trying to become a good survivor in this game. That tip is... never run self. No, actually, my final tip is something that I tell anybody who asks me how to become a good survivor in Dead by Daylight. And my answer has always been, and always going to be, to play killer. Now, that may sound counterproductive, and you may think, Oni, how is playing killer going to help me play survivor better, you big idiot? First of all, ouch! And second of all, it's much more effective than you may think. See, understanding your opponent's thought process is very important to being able to play against them. If you understand how a killer mind thinks, then you'll be able to make quicker and smarter decisions that will lead you to those juicy escapes. And now with the new MMR system that provides you a separate matchmaking rating for each individual killer, this will let you play killer without having the pressure of trying to be very good in the first place. On top of that, the new rank reset system will get you a bunch of blood points depending on how high you rank on both survivor and killer sides respectively. And trust me, you don't want to miss out on those blood points whenever they come, because the grind is real on this game. So yeah, even if you want to be a survivor main, do not ignore killer. It is very important to learn, and I have a lot of survivor main friends that don't understand how some killers work just because they've never actually touched the killer side before. And this tip also works vice versa. If you want to become a good killer main, then it's not a bad idea to start playing survivor as well on the side, because understanding a survivor's perspective is just as important as understanding the killer perspective. And with that, we've reached the end of the video. Thank you for watching to the end, and I hope you really learned at least one thing from this video. It took a lot of time to make, and I really hope you enjoyed the overall production of it. Well, enough blabbing. Thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!